Kendra's heart melted the moment she stumbled upon a stray puppy with an unusually large face wandering near her home. Concerned for its well-being, she took it in, assuming it was just a unique quirk of the little one. But when the puppy's condition started to deteriorate, Kendra rushed it to the vet, hoping it was nothing serious. As the vet examined the pup's swollen features, his usual calm demeanor turned to one of urgency. What he revealed next about the puppy's condition left Kendra reeling with worry. Kendra quickly realized the urgency of the little pup's health the moment she stepped into the veterinarian clinic. The receptionist's eyes widened in shock, and she quickly went into one of the vet's offices to inform them about Kendra's arrival. Not long after, the vet came running out of the room, frantically looking around him. When he finally spotted Kendra, he ran to her. Without saying a word, he looked at the pup. And before Kendra could even explain what had happened, he took the pup from her hands and went back into his office. Kendra quickly followed after the vet, her heart pounding in her chest. "Do you know what's wrong with him?" she asked. She had no idea what he was thinking, as he didn't have any expression on his face. Suddenly, the vet's eyes widened in shock. He looked at his assistant and ordered her to grab a few things from the back. Then he turned his attention to Kendra. "This is really bad," he said. "I need you to tell me exactly when and where you found this pup. But what was wrong with the pup? Why was the vet so in shock? And will the pup get better?" Kendra had found the little guy wandering at the side of the road 2 blocks away from her home. She had been on her way home from work when she spotted it trying to drink from a little puddle. Kendra had a bottle of water in her bag, so she walked toward the dog to offer it some fresh water instead of dirty water. That's when she noticed its large head. The pup's head was a little swollen, which Kendra found very cute looking. The pup gladly drank the water from Kendra's palm, and even after drinking, it stuck around for pets and cuddles. Kendra knew she couldn't leave the pup behind, so she decided to take it home. She had been looking for a pet, so this was, in her eyes, meant to be. However, Kendra's husband wasn't as excited about the pup. He was afraid the dog could be sick or spread diseases. Kendra told him not to worry, as the pup's coat looked healthy and shiny. Only its face was a little swollen, which she thought was from a birth condition. Little did she know, there was much more going on with the poor little pup. Her husband eventually agreed to keep the pup, falling in love with it the more they cuddled. The pup was very affectionate, which was a good thing. Her husband left the pup in Kendra's care while he went to the pet store to buy necessities like puppy food, a dog bed, and toys. But as he stood at the register, he suddenly got a frantic call from his wife. "You need to come home immediately," she almost yelled at him. Her husband didn't know what to think. He quickly paid for his things and hopped back in his car. As he raced home, his mind went crazy. What could have happened with the pup? As he drove up to her house, he already saw Kendra standing in the driveway. "We need to go to the vet now," and her husband had no idea what was going on, but he had no time to ask. Kendra yanked the car door open and jumped inside, holding the pup in her lap. "Kendra, what's going on?" he finally asked as they drove away. Kendra looked as if she had seen a ghost. She held the pup thinly in her arms. Kendra sighed. "It's the pup's face, James. It keeps getting bigger and bigger." She held the pup up so James could see. The pup's face was indeed almost twice the size of what it was before, and he also noticed it had trouble breathing. He looked at Kendra, who was holding back tears. What if something's very wrong with this little guy? James suddenly pressed down on the gas pedal. They were now going way over the speed limit, but even though he only met the pup an hour or so ago, he didn't want to arrive at the vet's clinic too late. When they finally arrived, there were no parking spaces, so he told Kendra to go in without him so he could find a parking spot. Kendra's heart was racing in her chest as she stepped inside the vet's clinic. The waiting room was quite full of people with their pets waiting their turn. Kendra quietly walked over to the receptionist and waited for her to look up from her computer. When she finally did, her eyes instantly fell on the pup's swollen face. The receptionist's eyes grew wide in shock. "I don't have an appointment," Kendra began. But the receptionist abruptly stood up and walked into one of the vet's offices before she could finish her sentence. Kendra had no idea what the receptionist was doing back there. She could only hope she was getting one of the veterinarians to look at the pup. Not long after, the vet came running out of the room, frantically looking around him. When he finally spotted Kendra, he ran to her. "Are you the one with the swollen pup?" he asked. Kendra nodded and held the pup up high so he could see the poor pup's face. The vet quickly took the pup from Kendra's hands and returned to his office. Kendra, her arms protectively encircling the swollen-faced puppy, dashed through the clinic's doors. Her breath was uneven, each step fueled by a mix of fear and urgency. The puppy, limp and whining softly, seemed to sense her anxiety. Kendra's eyes darted around the bustling clinic, seeking help. Her mind raced with worst-case scenarios, each thought punctuated by the puppy's shallow breaths. She approached the reception, her voice a mix of worry and determination. In the clinic's sterile waiting room, Kendra sat rigidly, her gaze fixed on the examination room's door. The puppy, wrapped in a small blanket, rested uneasily in her lap. Kendra's mind was a whirlwind of anxiety and fear, each passing second stretching into eternity. The muffled sounds of the clinic, the distant barks, and the occasional footsteps did little to ease her tension. She clutched the puppy tighter, whispering words of comfort more to herself than to the animal. The vet's room was a flurry of activity when Kendra entered. The vet, with a grave expression, carefully examined the puppy. His hands moved with precision and urgency, palpating gently, his brow furrowed in concentration. Kendra stood by, wringing her hands, her heart sinking with each passing moment. The vet's seriousness painted a stark picture of the situation's gravity, and Kendra found herself holding her breath, awaiting his verdict. Despite the heavy air of concern, Kendra noticed the vet's methodical approach. His focus and expertise, evident in every movement, offered a sliver of hope. He spoke softly to his assistants, requesting various tools and tests. Kendra watched, a mix of admiration and fear in her eyes. Each efficient action by the vet seemed to fight back against the tide of despair, igniting a fragile hope within Kendra's worried heart. Kendra's mind wrestled with uncertainty as the vet continued his examination. The puppy lay still, occasionally letting out a soft whimper that pierced Kendra's heart. She watched the vet's every move, trying to decipher his expression for any clue. The room felt overwhelmingly silent, each second laden with unanswered questions. Kendra's gaze alternated between the puppy and the vet, her fear a tangible presence in the cramped examination room. Kendra, seated anxiously, couldn't help but overhear snippets of conversation from the vet's office. Hushed tones discussing cases eerily similar to her puppy's condition floated to her ears. Her heart raced as she caught phrases like unusual swelling and rapid onset. The parallels were undeniable, stirring a growing concern within her. These overheard discussions painted a broader picture, suggesting that her puppy's ailment was not an isolated incident, but part of something larger and more ominous. In the midst of her eavesdropping, Kendra began to piece together the symptoms described by the vet's team. They spoke of ailments mirroring those of her own puppy: swelling, lethargy, unresponsiveness. The similarities were striking, resonating deeply with what she had observed. Each symptom they listed ticked a box in her mind, aligning almost perfectly with the puppy's condition. This revelation only deepened her worry, hinting at a mysterious, possibly common affliction. As Kendra sat there, absorbing the vet's words, her curiosity grew. The conversation was a puzzle, each piece seemingly connecting to her puppy's situation. Her mind raced with questions. What could be the common thread linking these cases? The vet's words, muffled through the walls, teased her thoughts, urging her to look deeper. This newfound curiosity mingled with her concern, driving her to seek answers, to understand the mystery surrounding her puppy's ailment. Slowly, Kendra began connecting the dots. The conversation in the vet's office, the symptoms of the puppy, the similar cases all started to form a coherent picture. She replayed every detail she had observed in her puppy, matching it against the fragments of conversation she overheard. It was like fitting pieces into a puzzle, each one revealing a part of the larger mystery. The connections she was making, though still vague, hinted at a larger, more complex situation. The more Kendra listened, the more the mystery deepened. It was no longer just about her puppy, it seemed to be something affecting more animals. The symptoms, the cases mentioned by the vet, all pointed to a common cause, yet remained elusive in nature. This deepening mystery wrapped around her thoughts, urging her to find answers. Her worry for the puppy was now coupled with a determination to unravel the truth behind these mysterious cases. Kendra, seated in the tense silence of the waiting room, found her attention drifting to the muffled voices emanating from behind the vet's door. Words like swelling and rapid decline floated through the gap, striking a chord of familiarity. Her ears perked up as she recognized the parallels with her own puppy's symptoms. The staff's discussion about similar cases sparked a growing unease in Kendra, hinting at a more widespread issue than she had first realized. As Kendra tuned in more intently to the conversation, the symptoms described by the vet's team began to resonate more deeply with her. Terms like excessive inflammation and acute discomfort mirrored exactly what she had observed in the puppy. This alignment of symptoms between the cases discussed and her puppy's condition stirred a mix of fear and intrigue in her. The coincidence seemed too strong to ignore, nudging her worry into a quest for understanding. Kendra's interest intensified with every overheard word. The fragmented discussions about cases similar to her puppy's, the symptoms, and the outcomes discussed all fueled her growing curiosity. Questions began to form in her mind, each begging for an answer. What was the common thread linking these cases? Her concern for the puppy's health was now accompanied by a strong desire to uncover the underlying cause of this mysterious ailment. Gradually, Kendra started to piece together the puzzle. The vet's words, overheard in fragments, began to form a clearer picture as she connected them with her puppy's condition. It was like a mental jigsaw puzzle where each piece was a symptom, a case, a whispered concern. This process of connecting the dots was both daunting and compelling, as each connection she made seemed to both clarify and complicate the overall picture of the situation. The more Kendra listened, the more the mystery deepened. It was no longer just about her puppy, it seemed to be something affecting more animals. The symptoms, the cases mentioned by the vet, all pointed to a common cause, yet remained elusive in nature. This deepening mystery wrapped around her thoughts, urging her to find answers. Her worry for the puppy was now coupled with a determination to unravel the truth behind these mysterious cases. Kendra sat, her eyes fixed on the puppy, feeling a torrent of emotions engulf her. Fear gnawed at her heart with every shallow breath the puppy took. Like a heavy shroud enveloped her, intensifying as she watched the little creature struggle. She couldn't shake the thought that she could have done more, acted faster. Each labored breath of the puppy was a stark reminder of the severity of the situation, deepening her emotional turmoil. The weight of self-blame pressed heavily on Kendra. She replayed the past hours in her mind, tormenting herself with what-ifs. Could she have noticed the puppy's distress earlier? Was there a crucial sign she had overlooked? These thoughts swirled relentlessly in her mind, each one a sharp jab of guilt. The sight of the puppy, so vulnerable and unwell, reinforced her self-reproach, making her question every decision she had made since finding him. In the stark white of the vet's office, Kendra confronted her deepest fears. The possibility of losing the puppy, whom she had just started to bond with, loomed large in her mind. Her fear was palpable, a tangible force that seemed to fill the room. She watched the vet at work, each movement a silent prayer for a positive outcome. The uncertainty of the situation was suffocating, leaving her grappling with a fear that was both overwhelming and paralyzing. Helplessness enveloped Kendra as she waited in the vet's office. She felt utterly powerless, a spectator in a drama that was unfolding before her eyes. The puppy's fate was out of her hands, resting in the expertise of the vet and the mysterious illness that afflicted the small creature. This sense of helplessness was a heavy burden, one that left her feeling hollow and anxious. She longed for control, for some way to influence the outcome, but there was none to be had. Kendra's emotions ebbed and flowed as the vet continued his work. One moment she was caught in a wave of despair, and the next a fragile hope would surface. The roller coaster of emotions was exhausting, leaving her feeling drained yet unable to look away. Each slight improvement in the puppy's condition lifted her spirits, only for them to crash down again with any sign of distress. It was a tumultuous journey, with each dip and rise testing her strength and resolve. In the midst of her anxiety, Kendra's attention was drawn to another pet owner in the waiting room. The woman cradling a small dog struck up a conversation. She shared a story strikingly similar to Kendra's about finding her dog in distress under mysterious circumstances. The parallels in their experiences were uncanny. This chance meeting in the waiting room opened a new avenue of thought for Kendra as she listened intently to the woman's tale. The pet owner, with a tone of empathy, recounted her ordeal. Her dog had suffered from symptoms similar to those of Kendra's puppy, found in a state of distress with no apparent cause. She spoke of her frantic rush to the vet, the uncertainty, and the sleepless nights that followed. Kendra found comfort and a sense of camaraderie in this shared experience as their stories echoed each other, revealing a pattern that was both alarming and enlightening. As the woman continued, she mentioned her suspicion of an environmental factor affecting her dog. This struck a chord with Kendra, who had not considered this possibility. The conversation opened up a whole new perspective on the puppy's condition. Kendra's mind raced with the implications of this revelation. Could there be a common environmental element at play? This potential cause offered a new direction in understanding the mysterious illness affecting her puppy. Kendra's thoughts whirled as she began to piece together the puzzle. The similarities in their stories, the timing, and now the suggestion of an environmental factor, all these elements started to form a clearer picture. Kendra pondered over every detail she could recall about where and when she found the puppy, trying to identify any potential environmental hazards. This new line of thinking provided a glimmer of hope in solving the mystery of the puppy's condition. The story shared by the fellow pet owner sparked a revelation in Kendra's mind. It provided a new angle in the unfolding mystery of the puppy's illness. Kendra realized that the key to understanding the puppy's ailment might lie outside the vet's office and the environment where she found him. This insight was a turning point, shifting her focus from solely medical explanations to considering the broader context of the puppy's condition. The vet emerged from the lab with a look of concern, holding a sheet of blood work results. He explained to Kendra that they had found something unusual in the puppy's blood, an anomaly that was not typically seen. His tone was serious as he described the atypical results, adding layers of complexity to the puppy's condition. Kendra listened intently, trying to grasp the significance of this new piece of the puzzle, her anxiety mounting. As Kendra probed for more details, the vet remained deliberately vague. He mentioned that the findings were complex and required further analysis, avoiding specifics. His reluctance to divulge more left Kendra with a sense of frustration and deepening concern. She wondered why he was withholding information and what it could mean for the puppy. The ambiguity of his answers only fueled her worry, leaving her to speculate about the seriousness of the situation. The vet finally shared that the condition indicated by the blood work was rare, something he had seldom encountered in his career. Kendra's heart sank at this revelation. The rarity of the condition suggested that finding a treatment could be challenging. Her mind raced with questions about the prognosis and the next steps. The word rare echoed in her thoughts, amplifying her fears for the puppy's well-being. In the midst of her growing concern, Kendra's thoughts drifted back to the conversation with the fellow pet owner in the waiting room. She began to connect the dots between the environmental factors the woman had suggested and the peculiar findings in the puppy's blood work. Could there be a link? This recollection provided a new perspective, making Kendra wonder if the environment where she found the puppy could be a key factor in his illness. Kendra's worry intensified as she pondered the implications of this discovery. The vet's findings, coupled with the story from the waiting room, seemed to point towards a common cause, potentially environmental in nature. This breakthrough was both enlightening and worrying. It opened up new avenues for diagnosis and treatment, yet also hinted at a more complex issue at play. Kendra braced herself for what this could mean for the puppy's recovery journey. As Kendra sat in the clinic, a memory suddenly surfaced. She remembered passing a construction site not far from where she had found the puppy. The site had been bustling with activity, machinery churning up dust and debris. At the time, she hadn't thought much of it, but now the image lingered in her mind. Could there be a connection? This recollection added a new dimension to the puzzle, intertwining with her growing concerns. Initially, Kendra dismissed the idea of the construction site being significant. It seemed too far-fetched, too coincidental. How could a construction site be related to the puppy's illness? She wrestled with this thought, her logical side clashing with a growing intuition. Doubt clouded her mind, but the memory of the site, so vivid and now seemingly relevant, refused to fade away. It was a niggling thought, one that she couldn't quite shake off. Despite her reservations, Kendra felt compelled to share her thoughts with the vet. The possibility, however remote, that the construction site might be linked to the puppy's condition was too important to ignore. She gathered her courage, pushing past her doubts. Sharing this information might provide a new lead, or it might lead nowhere, but Kendra knew she had to mention it. It was a piece of the puzzle that the vet needed to know. As she spoke with the vet, Kendra outlined her recollection of the construction site, describing its proximity to where she found the puppy. She speculated on a possible link between the site and the puppy's mysterious illness. Could there have been toxins or pollutants at the site that affected the puppy? Her theory was speculative, but it was grounded in the growing number of coincidences and similarities that had emerged throughout this ordeal. The vet listened intently to Kendra's theory, his expression one of thoughtful consideration. He didn't dismiss her idea, instead he pondered its potential significance. Kendra watched as he mulled over her words, weighing them against his medical knowledge and the puppy's symptoms. There was a moment of silence, a pause that held both skepticism and possibility. The vet's response would be crucial, determining the next steps in their quest to understand and treat the puppy's condition. The vet, intrigued by Kendra's theory, decided to seek a second opinion. He made a call to a colleague who specialized in environmental-related veterinary cases. Kendra watched as he paced back and forth, explaining the situation in hushed tones. The intensity in his voice was evident, even as his words were muffled. This call represented a new phase in the puppy's diagnosis, potentially bringing them closer to understanding the root cause of the illness. As the vet conversed with his colleague, Kendra could sense the growing seriousness of the conversation. They were discussing the similarities between Kendra's puppy's case and another case the colleague had encountered. Even though Kendra couldn't catch every word, the tone of the conversation conveyed a deepening concern. The parallels being drawn were significant, suggesting a pattern that could not be ignored. This was more than a coincidence, it was a clue leading to a larger truth. The vet and his colleague pieced together the evidence from both cases, finding striking similarities in symptoms and circumstances. Kendra, overhearing parts of the conversation, felt a mix of hope and anxiety. The corroboration of facts between the two cases lent credence to her theory about the construction site. It was becoming increasingly clear that they were dealing with something complex and potentially widespread, a realization that was both alarming and enlightening. Kendra's heart skipped a beat when she overheard the vet utter, "This is really bad." His tone was laden with concern and urgency. She couldn't hear the rest of the conversation, but those words echoed in her mind, amplifying her fears. The gravity of the situation was sinking in. Kendra's initial worry about the puppy's health had escalated into a realization that they might be dealing with something far more serious than she had imagined. The vet's words, overheard in fragments, sent a wave of panic through Kendra. The phrase "this is really bad" replayed in her mind, each repetition intensifying her concern. She sat there, feeling a growing sense of helplessness and dread. The implications of what the vet said were unclear, but they were enough to make her fear for the worst. The uncertainty of the puppy's fate, coupled with the vet's evident alarm, left Kendra feeling more anxious than ever. After thorough consultation and analysis, the vet concluded that the puppy's condition was likely due to toxic exposure at the nearby construction site. His voice was grave as he shared this with Kendra, explaining the complexity of such cases. The idea that environmental factors played a role confirmed Kendra's suspicions, but also brought a new wave of worry. The diagnosis, while providing answers, underscored the seriousness of the puppy's condition and the challenges ahead in its treatment. With the diagnosis in hand, the vet wasted no time in beginning a specialized treatment tailored to combat the effects of toxic exposure. He carefully prepared the medication, explaining each step to Kendra to help ease her anxiety. Kendra watched, her heart a mix of fear and gratitude, as the vet administered the treatment with steady hands. This moment marked a turning point, a step towards healing for the puppy. As the treatment commenced, Kendra maintained a watchful eye over the puppy. Each movement, each breath the puppy took was observed with hopeful anticipation. She found herself willing the treatment to work, silently urging the puppy to fight through. The vet's office, once a place of uncertainty, now became a sanctuary of hope. Kendra's gaze rarely wavered from the puppy, her worry slowly being replaced by cautious optimism. Gradually, the puppy began to show small but promising signs of recovery. Its breathing became steadier, and the swelling started to recede. Kendra noticed these changes, each one a small victory in the battle for the puppy's health. The sight of the puppy's improving condition brought a gentle relief to Kendra's heart. Though the journey was far from over, these signs of improvement were beacons of hope in the arduous path of recovery. Kendra clung to the hope that the puppy would fully recover, drawing strength from every positive sign. Each small improvement in the puppy's condition bolstered her spirits. She sat by the puppy's side, offering gentle strokes and soft words of encouragement. The bond between them deepened in these moments of shared struggle and hope. Kendra's faith in the puppy's resilience and in the treatment grew with each passing hour. She watched the puppy slowly but surely fight back. A sense of calm finally settled in as the vet confirmed the puppy's condition had stabilized. Kendra exhaled a long-held breath, feeling the tension in her shoulders ease. The news was like a ray of sunshine piercing through days of worry. The stabilization marked a critical turning point in the puppy's recovery journey. Kendra's heart swelled with gratitude and relief, her eyes brimming with tears as she watched the puppy rest more comfortably. The moment Kendra had been waiting for finally arrived, the puppy was truly on the mend. Overwhelmed with a mix of relief, joy, and love, she gently scooped the puppy into her arms. Tears of happiness streamed down her face as she cradled the small, recovering creature. The emotional release was profound. The fear and uncertainty that had gripped her heart were now replaced by an overwhelming sense of gratitude and affection for the resilient little soul in her arms. With the puppy's recovery underway, Kendra's thoughts turned to prevention. Determined to ensure no other animal suffered a similar fate, she decided to take action. She resolved to call the police and report the potential hazards at the construction site. Her resolve was firm. This was not just about her puppy anymore, but about the safety of the community. Armed with the vet's findings and her own observations, Kendra prepared to make a stand. Kendra remained steadfast by the puppy's side, her presence a constant source of comfort as it continued to recuperate. She watched every subtle improvement, her heart swelling with pride at the puppy's resilience. The wait for complete recovery was a test of patience, but Kendra was more than willing to give her time and support. She talked to the puppy, encouraging it gently, her words filled with hope and love. A few days later, Kendra received the news she had hoped for. Her efforts had paid off. The police, acting on a report, had investigated the construction site and discovered hazardous conditions. As a result, the site was closed down, preventing further harm. Kendra felt a profound sense of accomplishment. Her actions had made a difference. This closure was not just a personal victory, but a triumph for the well-being of the community. With a puppy peacefully asleep in her arms, Kendra stepped out of the vet's clinic into the fresh air. The world seemed different now, imbued with a sense of hope and renewal. Holding the puppy close, Kendra felt a profound connection to the little life she had helped save. This experience had given her a new purpose and perspective. As she walked to the car, her steps were light, buoyed by the sense of beginning a new chapter with her brave little companion. Outside the clinic, Kendra's husband waited with open arms, ready to take them home. The relief on his face mirrored Kendra's own. Together, they carefully settled the puppy in the car, enveloped in a blanket of care and love. As they began the journey home, a comforting silence filled the space between them, a shared understanding of the ordeal they had weathered together. Though the road home had never seemed so welcoming. The drive home was a quiet one, with each mile bringing Kendra deeper into reflection. She thought about the fear, the uncertainty, and the eventual triumph over the challenges they faced. Still gazing at the sleeping puppy, a symbol of resilience and hope, Kendra felt a deep gratitude for the journey, despite its hardships. It had taught her about strength, compassion, and the power of taking action. The road stretched ahead, a metaphor for the path they had traversed and the future they faced. The moment they arrived home marked more than just a physical return. It signified the start of a new life for Kendra and the puppy. As they crossed the threshold, a sense of peace and belonging enveloped them. The familiar surroundings took on new meaning, representing safety and recovery. Kendra gently placed the puppy in its new bed, watching as it snuggled comfortably. They were home now, ready to build a life filled with care, love, and new adventures. A few days later, Kendra received a letter that brought finality to their ordeal. It was an official confirmation of the closure of the construction site. Reading the letter, Kendra felt a surge of vindication and relief. Her efforts had not only saved her puppy, but potentially protected many others. The letter was more than just a piece of paper. It was a testament to the impact one person can make. It marked the end of a chapter and the beginning of a safer, more aware community.